Olá pessoal, neste vídeo vou falar das 3 coisas que eu gostaria de saber antes do meu aprendizado de português. Há pouco aprendi a língua portuguesa, mas acho que meu processo teria sido melhor se eu soubesse realmente das coisas que vou falar para vocês neste vídeo de hoje. Vamos lá. Então, primeiro, first things first, you need to get your timeline right. Like, how long is it going to take you to actually learn the language? I set myself 6 weeks to become fluent in Brazilian Portuguese, which, when I look back, was absolutely ridiculous. This is me speaking after 6 weeks.
Está bem porque agora estou tentando aprender português e é muito mais fácil fazer tudo desde casa. Eu posso estudar pelas manhãs, ler, escrever, tomar aulas de Italki, repassar minhas notas ou anotações em português. Então, está funcionando bem agora.
Now, in reality, I was never going to get to fluency in 6 weeks. Some would argue that I'm not even fluent now, and I'm conversationally fluent, but I cannot speak like a native. I think it's important to set realistic timelines and deadlines, so that way you don't lose motivation when the going gets tough. Because trust me, with language learning, the going gets tough. Now, if you set yourself a target of 6 weeks, for example, and you don't make it, this could demotivate you and derail you from the language learning process. So you need to really set realistic deadlines and timelines so that you can meet them and feel happy about your progress in due time. The second thing that I wish I knew as a Spanish speaker is that it ain't Spanish. I know it's obvious, but it's very easy to think, oh, because I speak Spanish or because I'm fluent in Spanish, I'll just pick up Portuguese like this. That's not how it works. Unfortunately, you need to train your brain to think in the target language. What I was doing at the very beginning was simply thinking in Spanish, and then when I couldn't really translate a word, what I would do is think about it from the Spanish perspective and then kind of guess the Portuguese version. That works sometimes, but more often than not, it doesn't work. Also, it's important to train yourself to think in the target language because in my case, for example, I would say things that made sense in Spanish, but absolutely didn't make real sense when it came to Brazilian Portuguese. For example, the term or the phrase dá certo, they use a lot in Brazil, right? Like something is gonna be good, it's going to work out. So a coisa vai dar certo, né? I would say I want it to be certain or I want it to work out, so quero que sea certo. But I can't say quero que seja certo. They're going to be like, what? I need to use the term dá certo in that situation. So it's important to kind of move away from thinking and structuring things solely in Spanish and then plucking from the Portuguese language if and when necessary. You need to really change the way you think to thinking in the target language, in this case, Portuguese, and then going from there. I think I learned the hard way that I needed to stop doing that early on, but eventually I learned and I've kind of trained myself to think in the target language. But from time to time, I can't lie to you, I do dip into my Spanish brain when speaking Portuguese, but I'm trying actively to separate the two. Now, the third and final thing I'd like to discuss is that learning a language online, on Italki, with textbooks, in a very structured format is only going to take you so far. In fact, you need to speak to natives as early in the language learning process as possible. And when I say natives, I'm not necessarily talking about professors on Italki. What I mean is, in my case, like real Brazilians in real life, here in London, socializing with them, speaking with them, conversing with them, understanding their culture, the phrases and terms that they use to really understand the language on a real life basis, right? There's one thing understanding the language from an academic perspective, but the whole point of learning the language is to communicate with people and understand what they're saying. And you want to be understood and you want to sound relatively normal in normal context. So to do that, you have to speak to normal people, right? So don't underestimate that. Try to work that into your study schedule early on. Don't wait to be able to speak well before you start engaging with people. That's something that I myself have been guilty of. So I wouldn't suggest you do the same. I would suggest, as soon as you can string together a few sentences, don't just speak to people on iTalki or on the internet, speak to people in real life to really push you. And why that's good, in fact, is because it forces you to think on the spot. I think sometimes with iTalki and more structured learning environments, there's a tendency to focus your learning on a specific topic for that day, or to focus your learning on specific ideas, grammar, conjugation, etc., because you're trying to get through a class. But in real life, you're not really doing that, right? You're freestyling. You're forced to use your brain, think on the spot and respond to prompts. So it's really important to get used to doing that as early on in the process as possible, because ultimately that's what language learning is about. If you like this video, you should go and check out my other video where I taught myself Brazilian Portuguese in just 3 months. In this video, I detail, in very specific details, how I became fluent in Brazilian Portuguese. So make sure you go and check it. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.